Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today is the 3rd of October. My name is Matt Leshper with 1836 Property Management in beautiful Austin, Texas. We are happy to be with you today. As some housekeeping notes, we're going to try to keep our talk between 30 and 45 minutes and leave room at the end for you guys to have any questions. If you're on your lunch hour, hopefully you can fit this in during the time. That's the objective. We want to keep you on time and be respectful of you guys. So if you have any questions, let us know. Put those on the side, and then if we don't cover it during the main body of our work, then we will come back and make sure you get answers to those afterwards. The next event that we're going to have is going to be on November 7th, and we're going to talk about where to find the deals and how to plan for some economic changes that are eventually going to come around. This is the longest bull market, I think, ever. So it's great to have it when it's there, but let's go ahead and plan for the future and take care of business instead of hoping it never changes. I think that's a little bit wiser tactic. So today joining us is Scott Royal Smith, Royal Legal Solutions. I did a radio show with Scott, and to be real honest, he was pretty amazing on the show. He brought it, he delivered, and he gave me a lot of confidence. So I have a lot of friends that are attorneys who are in the real estate business, and a lot of these guys I like. It's kind of funny now that I think about it. Most of them in the real estate business everybody likes, but some of the other ones we get to make fun of, but they're all still good friends. Scott really had some great ideas that were a little bit out of the box for folks on the radio show, so we wanted to bring him on, have him share with you guys so that you guys could just take those ideas, roll them around, consult with him after the show if you want, but really just protect yourself, protect your properties, and prosper as you kind of go down the road. So we're going to do a little give and take today. He speaks frequently. His podcast is linked in on the side of your screen under the notes. Also contact information for his office. He'll be happy to make appointments with you, talk to you, do whatever you need. That's his job, is to be a counselor. So I think we all forget that and think that attorneys are really there to litigate. But I tell you what, every time I've needed one, they've really been more of a counselor than a litigator, which I think that's the sign of somebody that's really good. So, Scott, thanks for joining us today. Really happy to see you again. Even though we're both in Austin, we don't always get to cross paths. So happy to have you with us. What's new in your world? Anything happening?
Yeah, Matt. I mean, some amazing things are happening. We just launched the Real Estate Nerds podcast here earlier, actually the very beginning of September. We already have our, almost 40 episodes up on that. I posted a link for the Real Estate Nerds podcast here in the comments, and the organic traffic from that's growing up huge. So that's really exciting for what we have going on. We just hit our 2,000 client number. So right now we actively have 2,000 clients all over the country. Which is very exciting. And our total numbers of protection just hit, we estimate about $4.2 billion we have underneath our umbrella of protection. And 99% of our clients use all of the same systems that I've designed to be the most aggressive systems that you can use for defense for real estate investors. All of our clients are real estate investors. I've been a real estate investor for over 8 years. And it's all I do is think about how do we streamline operations, streamline our banking, maximize our protections, and overall just make more money in real estate. So I'm excited to sit with you here today to be able to share with everybody about how they can learn how to do the same things that I do and all of my clients have done to really make sure that they can move from the 80% protection that insurance gives them to the 100% protection when you have insurance plus a company structure together.
Right, and a lot of these are things that I think our listeners need to know that you really need to be advised on. You're not going to stay up to date on the changes in legislation, laws, opportunities if you don't have someone that. I really would like to have just lunch and have iced tea with my attorney once a month just to make sure we're talking, we're going through ideas. Now that's a little excessive if you've got people in California or busy clients, but I mean, do you think once a year would be a bare minimum to at least have a significant consultation?
Yeah, we actually do as part of our membership into the company is a twice yearly consultation. And we go through everybody, their full estate plan, their full company structure. And our company also provides unlimited ongoing legal support. for all of our members, right? So we're actually changing the model a lot from saying, well, you need to pay hundreds of dollars to talk to an attorney for 10 minutes, and only if you really, really think you have to saying, no, you come to us for all the information that you need. We provide you professional support and service to guide you with the information. And then we make money whenever you're making money, which is you're actually doing deals. And that's when we put together all the paperwork. And then that's how we, make money on it. But the real gold nuggets of what separates out what we do and what I do for real estate investors from what the typical model is that most attorneys are only advising at the very lowest level of information. I mean, first off, most people think that they have insurance and that they're protected, and they just don't understand what insurance really protects you from. It only protects you from accidents. It doesn't protect you from anything else. Like I personally know a client, now he's a client, but when he wasn't a client, he lost over $3 million from a single lawsuit, and he had insurance, right? And so he thought he was fully protected from it. And it come to find out that he didn't even know that his insurance companies would drop major claims against him, and that he would have to rely on a company structure to make sure that even when the insurance company dropped a claim, he would still be protected. And that's really the types of information that we're able to provide clients. It's more than just like here's a prescription, you should go do that. One of the things that I'm happy to share with you today, and what we regularly share with our clients, is why would you want to do it this particular way? Like, why is the rationale that we have a better understanding of what the real estate business is, where the liabilities, where the risks are, and what's a cost efficient and effective way to protect yourself while making sure that you don't, have a cluster in your life around how the operations are going to work, or the taxes are going to work, or all the other things that can really go wrong if you don't set it up correctly.
So I'm making notes. I'm definitely not doing a secondary activity, but you're giving me so many nuggets. I want to make sure that I don't miss anything for our listeners today. So if you see me doing something on scratch paper, that's what it is today. What I hear you really saying beyond kind of all the details is prevention, not trying to put a Band-Aid on it after there is a problem. Like let's talk about this every 6 months. Let's keep you dialed in, and then as you grow your portfolio, whatever that may be, protect you on the front side, because once it's done, it's done. Once you're in a lawsuit, you're not going to go back and go, oh, I probably should have done that last year. Can I retroactively apply?
Yeah, it's actually too late. Even with the lawsuits threatened, it already becomes too late. If you transfer anything after a lawsuit's threatened, it's called a fraudulent transfer, and they claw it back. If you protect it ahead of time, they can't get to it. And the structures that we put together not only offer the maximum levels of protection you get from the lawsuit, we also know how to hide all of the ownership of the asset and your ownership of the company, filter all the major transactions where people would find out about your information regarding you and your assets, all gets channeled through a law firm that's then protected by the attorney-client privilege. It's really set up in a way to say that what we're doing is we're giving people a methodology that attacks the business of lawsuits. Since we know that the sharky attorneys are out there, we see them on TV, we see them on radio, they're going after people, right, to be able to get their money. And we say, well, what we're going to do is make it where we're really tough to eat. So you probably don't want to come after us. So you should just go ahead and take the next case. And it's just as simple as that. And the way that you do that is high level protections and anonymity. The problem is that people have run into before when they've looked to do this is that the high level protections and anonymity were much too expensive up front. They were way too expensive in terms of the ongoing costs. And they make the operations of what they needed to do to maintain them became a huge headache. And those are the issues that we've solved, right? So it's no longer $15,000 expensive to get yourself fully protected, no matter how many assets you have.
All right. So I think the big thing that people are thinking about right now is give me a number. Give me a number. Let's not give them a number yet. Let's go through and explain what you're doing, why you're doing it, and let's make sure we don't leave without giving them some ballpark numbers. Now, everybody's going to be a little bit different, but I think you're going to have a good feel if I give you a sample client, a ballpark. You could say it's probably between, D and G.
I just want to let everybody know that it's not crazy, right? Like most people have this idea that like, oh, to get protected, it's so crazily expensive. There's no way I could afford it. And there's levels of protection that you can step up to depending on what's right for you. And that there's always a cost effective option, right? So it's just finding out what that's going to be for the individual.
Do you feel like people are scared to come in and just have a talk with an attorney because they think that the cost is going to be something they can't swallow, or maybe it's going to be, outside of their realm of comfort? Or do you think they avoid it just because it's scary?
I think that most people avoid it because it's not fun to think about company structures. Like, it's not fun to think about your estate planning. And then it's like, I just don't want to do it because it sounds like it sucks to have to sit down and have to go through all of that. Right. And the other piece too is that, what's that?
Like applying for a loan, it's going to be painful.
Yeah, the truth is it's not fun, right? So like the what you can actually expect though in terms of like a positive experience is clarity, right? So the what most people have run into, and I bet if we took a poll right now of the audience, of the hundreds of people that are listening right now, and we said how many people of you have looked into this before and ended up being frustrated and confused, everybody would raise their hand. Right. So that's really different about something that we can go into here today is like, here's actually the systems, here's exactly how they work. And usually that's where most people get most excited about what it is I do, because one of the things I specialize in, of course, is being an attorney, but it's also being an educator. So, if we want to, I'm happy to share with you guys all of the secrets, of how it all works. And this is how it works from top to bottom.
You and I have some things that we've kind of prearranged and some great topics. So I want to make sure we hit those because I've got a feeling they're kind of important.
Sure.
So you and I can hang out and have a glass of tea and barbecue all day and talk. But I think we need to deliver some of these folks today. So let's just start at the top, and we'll just take it down from there. What are you talking about when you're saying entities? We'll take it down to a base level for anybody that's brand new to this or maybe new to investing or legal aspects. What are entities? How do you arrange them? What does that do for you? Talk to me about that.
So an entity, where we're typically talking about is some type of corporate structure. All corporate structures are filed with the Secretary of State, and it's relatively inexpensive to file them. Only usually, like here in Texas, you're only talking a $300 filing fee to get that off the ground. And there's also options with that to go do something like LegalZoom, right? To be able to file that for you. The important pieces you're going to need to know about filing a basic entity is going to be that you have the filing done correctly, you have a registered agent, you have an operating agreement that's effective, and then you're keeping up with all the yearly franchise taxes, especially here in Texas. The thing that a lot of people don't know about with entities is the use of a series LLC structure, which is how you can file one company called a series LLC, and then it can create on its own privately for free an infinite number of LLCs, right? So now you would end up with an infinitely scalable company that costs you no additional costs. There's no additional franchise tax filings, there's no additional registration fees, there's no additional filing fees, nothing. You're talking absolutely for free LLCs that you can create on your desktop. And that's what you want that's what an entity structure is. And you would want to be using an LLC structure because of the protections that go along with it. Meaning that if somebody sues you, they can't go after your LLC. If they sue one of your LLCs or one of your individual child series of your series LLC, they can't go after you or any of the other child series.
So what would you do for most clients? Are you going to take them in, kind of assess what they have, what they don't have? What if they have a business they have? Because a lot of these people are entrepreneurs as well, even if it's a small business. They may have a couple properties. What would an arrangement look like?
Yeah, it actually doesn't matter whether you're an entrepreneur or you're a real estate investor. There's the fundamental principles of what happens for asset protection is very, very simple. The number one rule is that you have at least a two company structure. One company is actually going to hold all of your assets, and another and not going to do anything else. It's just going to hold assets. The other company holds no assets and does all of the operations, which we're defining operations to be it's going to enter into contracts, sign your lease agreements, be the landlord, otherwise be your face to the world. You're going to operate through that separate company that does everything but doesn't own anything. And that's true whether you're a real estate investor or you're a normal business person, because you're going to have as a real estate investor, you have all of your assets subdivided into a series LLC to compartmentalize them and protect them in that route. Then you're going to run all your operations through your own private property management company that's going to enter into your leases, hire contractors, et cetera. That's the way it works in the real estate game. But if you're just a private business person, you have intellectual property. You likely have inventory. You likely have other pieces to your company that are hard assets that you'll want to segment off into an asset holding company and then run your website, run your outbound calling, run your advertising all through a shell company, because those are all the places that people are going to say, hey, you committed fraud here, or you breached this contract, or whatever the case may be. And you want that to go against the shell company. So that way, if the worst case scenario happens, you don't have to even really care. All you have to do is just wind down that shell company and start up a new one. It costs you maybe $850 or so to be able to do that. And it's like an insurance policy against lawsuits, because your worst case scenario is less than $1,000.
I like it. So when you're talking money of this nature as well, one of the things that you've spoken about before is how this simplifies your tax return. So talk to me about tax preparation and how you're going to do all this on a single return, because if I think about the accountant bills to put all this together and the books to keep all this stuff, it sounds like a lot.
Yeah, and it's not. So you're able to structure with the series LLC structure that we talked about, like compartmentalizing every asset, or even if your two company structure, everything can go through one bank account and be held in one bank account. And the why that's so important is because it's really difficult to manage multiple bank accounts. And you're probably going to screw it up with what money belongs to. It should be where. And the important piece to think when you have one bank account, though, is you have to have accurate accounting records that goes to each individual company, right? So for a real estate investor, what that's going to look like is that you just simply tag the income and expenses that you have with property A as separate from property B, C, D, et cetera. All of that's in one bank account, but your accounting records simply tag it. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to learn how to do tagging correctly inside of QuickBooks. So we've never had investor clients ever have an issue with being able to do that. Now that you have all of your operations simplified through the banking and accounting on that end of it, all of the income that you get reported to you every year is going to channel up through the one EIN number. So it's one Schedule E that now is on your personal return if it's you and a married couple, or it's a partnership return if it's two unrelated, partners that are going to be owning that entity. If you're really savvy, what you'll do is find a way to shelter that income with a solo 401k. So any non-W-2 income, you would create your own solo 401k and then shelter up to $55,000 a year in pre-tax dollars, which you can then turn around and loan 50% of it to yourself and then benefit from that type of investing strategy.
All right, so let's dig into that for a minute, because that sounds kind of fun. How am I going to create my own 401k?
Yeah. So if you're not employed by another, employer, right? What you would do is that you establish your own company structure, like you would use the shell company in this example that we have set up, right? We have a 2-company structure. Shell company, by the way, is bringing in all of the money from the outside world. When it gets the money, it passes the money to the asset holding company. The asset holding company then distributes to you. But now we're going to say, well, we actually want to shelter out $55,000 of the income here. So what what you're going to do then is establish a solo 401k underneath your shell company. And then your company and you are going to fund that solo 401k. And as long as it's just you or a married couple that are the only employees of that shell company, now all of a sudden you can create your own 401k. It costs, around $1,400 or $1,000 or so, depending on which provider you go to be able to set that up. You can manage all of the funds yourself. As you get to control the bank accounts for it, and you get to control the investments that are made out of it. And you can loan yourself back half of what you contribute to it. So if you contribute $50,000 into it, you get to loan yourself back with pre-tax dollars, $25,000, and then you can use the other $25,000 to buy real estate, loan it to somebody, do whatever you'd like to do at that point.
So I think we almost need a whiteboard to start writing some.
Well, I have a ton of that stuff. You'll be surprised that it's all on my website.
That's good. Everybody's got a link to that.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing you say is that we don't have to just put the money in stocks. We can put it in real estate, and the company is going to supplement that. So initially that makes me think we're going to lower our taxable liability by reducing income from the company as well.
Yeah. You reduce the taxable liability from the company side of it. You are able to keep your cash flow strong for your personal cash flow if you need to, right? So for a lot of entrepreneurs, that's a really nice thing. A lot of people aren't making, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, right? They might be like, okay, well, I made, $100,000 this year. And what they'll do is they, have all their normal deductions, and then they max out their solo 401k. They'll loan themselves back half of that money. So now that they can use that money to live on. And then that other half, I've seen some guys will do this, is that with the other half, they'll loan their friend the other half, and then their friend with their solo 401k will loan them the same amount. So now they have all of that money tax free, so now they've really boosted up their immediate cash flows, and they don't have to pay that money back for 5 years. So there's some short-term strategies, 5 years is actually pretty long, right? But there's actually, some strategies you can do in here that are pretty advanced. But they all start with the fundamental basics of like, okay, let's establish an asset holding company. Now let's operate a shell LLC. Okay, now let's do some tax savings that's associated with the shell LLC with using the solo 401k that's underneath that.
So let's say I haven't worked through the math, and you've got this on the website, but I don't know if you got round numbers. I'll put you on the spot, but not to the penny. So let's say, let's keep it round, keep it simple. Let's say the company makes $100,000, and I take 55 or whatever you're saying the max per year is, and put it in there. What is the benefit? I mean, what's the net of this at the end of the year? How much am I going to save by going through this whole dog and pony show versus just paying my taxes and being done, or just contributing the max to Edward Jones and being done with this so I can go to the lake and drink a beer instead of hanging out in your office for a couple of days? What is the number?
Yeah, so typically it usually takes about 1 to 2 hours of total time with our clients to be able to set up the full entity structure, get all the information, brief them correctly, educate them. So it's a really low time commitment. The asset holding companies and the shell companies put together, those really depend upon the complexity of what the client needs, but that's going to be anywhere between $5,000 to $8,000 typically. The advantage with the solo 401k though, in terms of total tax savings, that goes into this is you're talking about sheltering up to $55,000 a year in pre-tax dollars, right? So for most people, that's saving them 30% because that's their total net taxable liability that comes in that. So if just some round numbers here, we're probably talking about saving people somewhere between 10 to 15 plus $1,000 a year, even if you're at a lower tax bracket. And so year one, setting this stuff up, using those kinds of tax strategies, you can pay for the whole thing. You can walk out being 100% protected on your assets. You can hide all of your ownership from the public records. You can operate through a shell company to make sure you're protected from lawsuits. And then the tax savings, you're able to pay yourself back in year one or year two, depending on how much you're able to contribute.
So you're reducing your taxable liability. 30% is a great number for entrepreneurs. So we'll say 55K, 30% of that you put away. Couldn't you do that the same way by just putting it in a different 401? Or is that, what's the difference between the two? Putting in your own and being able to manage it, obviously.
Well, yeah, because you're an entrepreneur, right? So you have 1099 income that's come through from you running your business, right? So the question for a lot of people is saying, if you're already with an employer, right, they have you with a 401k and then you're limited with how much you can do for. What's that?
Right.
Okay.
They already have one that's.
Yeah.
So they've got their own. The employer's got their own, but you as the employer, you don't have one. That's the whole premise of it. Yeah.
So it's you being an entrepreneur, right? And you being a real estate investor, that you would be able to then do a different max out that you can then control, right? So you can still have your own solo 401k, even though you're employed and you have your employer also has a 401k for you. And the reason why you would want to do that is because you're maxed out on what your maximum contributions can be are by law, right? But you can decide which one you want to max out. So you'd probably want to max out all of your income that you're making from your side hustle or from your real estate and find a way to do that, because then you can take that and turn that around and then make whatever investments you want for it into your own real estate, loan it out. You might start making that 15-20% return on your money instead of making the 5, 6, 7, 8% that you might be getting from a Vanguard fund through your employer.
Lots to take in. So as we get some questions, I want to make sure that we don't miss any of these as well. Did we say that 55K was maxing out? Let me just read the question. How much can you contribute if you are maxing in your W-2?
Yeah, so you got to be looking at it. It's only going to apply for your 1099 income, so it's outside of your employer income. So what you're doing is,
could you have both?
Yeah, you could do both, right? And so the threshold is around that $55,000 level. That's if you're from your employer income and your all income. That's total of what you can possibly contribute every year to a 401k is around 55,000, and those will combine together to determine the total from your solo and your employer.
So if you're already, let's say you're making $250,000 a year with an employer, and thus you've got money to invest in real estate. Obviously, if there's a dollar for dollar match or something like that, that's kind of a no-brainer with the employer. But if you're not getting that, you may be better off sheltering your income from the 1099, provided that you have it, and then being able to invest that where you want. Am I on the right track?
Yeah, you probably have to crunch the numbers between what opportunities you have, right? I mean, I've seen some guys that do options trading with their own private money that make way more than they would ever be able to do, through their employer Vanguard funds, even at 100% return on day one, when you're looking at only making 4% per year is nice. It gives you that big upfront kick, but they don't have control over the investments and that they like. But that's really turns out to be a shuffle between each individual of what they want to do in that scenario. What I find is actually much more common is that people don't have much retirement at all set up with their through their employer, but they do have some real estate, and so they're generating real estate income. And you can't, and you need to do a strategy like I'm talking about. To be able to channel your income that you're driving from your real estate and hold it tax-free, right? Because there's actually like separate loopholes that you have to jump through to be able to do that, because you can't just do it directly with the rental income. That's actually prohibited, right? You actually have to channel it through a separate shell company and do like a separate S corporation tax selection with that. And there's some legal loopholes you have to do to be able to maximize that and still be able to have the cash flow benefit from your real estate. So, I don't know if that's helpful, but it gets pretty involved.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thought that comes to mind just from my experience is we have a lot of clients that they come in and let's just use, again, broad brush. They say they put 20% down on a property. They feel like they should start cash flowing. And we go, okay, wait a minute. That's not how it works. Like, this is an investment. You don't put money in your 401k and expect to start getting money back out on day one. You also don't put money in your 401k and expect to stop putting money in your 401k. You have to build these. These are investments that take time and honestly contributions. You'll get some tax deductions from doing that with rental property, just like your 401 if you invest that money, but you're going to be putting your money somewhere. You're not going to start printing money from any of these different investments. They're very long-term things. And I don't know. I wanted to bring that up and share it because we have a lot of people that just are under the belief that if they put money on the table, they should start taking money off the table. And it just doesn't work that way in real estate and 401 and any kind of investing. A lot of times you've got to continuously put in. And then at the end of the rainbow is when you collect that pot of gold. It's not one step up on the first color. It takes a while for it to all build and accumulate.
Yeah, I think it definitely does take a while to accumulate, right? And what you're talking about there is building equity inside of the properties. And what a lot of people don't realize is equity itself is inherently risky. That's actually the amount of money that you have in play that's publicly disclosed if you have property in your own name that people can find out about and then make you a target, right? And that's where asset protection comes in. It's because it's the way to create a vault around your money that you're building up. And if you're building in your personal name, you're actually showing people where to go to get a payday.
It's kind of sad, but I mean, it is a reality that there's people out there that live on others.
We live in the most litigious country in the world, and real estate is the most intensely lawsuit ridden, type of sector, right? So it's not like what we looked at in terms of court data is we're not looking at it and saying that, oh, well, maybe if people are extra careful or extra honest that they're going to be able to avoid lawsuits. The data shows that over a 20-year period, there's a 95% probability of being involved in a major lawsuit for a real estate investor, right? So, but
just send me that stat. I'm going to use that. So in a 20-year period, it's a 95% that there's going to be a lawsuit.
Yeah. And that's from the survey we conducted of all the court data nationally, right? So the questions are coming in is not saying if you're going to be sued, it's when are you going to be sued? And then what position are you going to be in when that happens, right? And so for a lot of people, they're misinformed and thinking like, I have insurance and so I think I'm going to be fine there. And most of them have a ton of property in their own name and think nothing of it, right? Whereas part of the consultation that we do, the first thing that we show people is here's exactly the tools that litigation attorneys use, because I used to be one, to be able to find out what your assets are. And literally in under a minute, Matt, in under a minute, I can find out every property you have in your own name, where they're located, what the equity is, how much you own, have on it, and see whether you're a good target. And that's actually how we start the presentation for everybody, and then walk them through, here's all of the tools that we put in place that counteract all the things that I learned from being in the industry of being the most aggressive type of litigation possible. I got burned out on all that. I thought it was actually kind of horrible at the end of the day, like what everything was doing. We were suing major insurance companies, so it wasn't like I was attacking individual people. It was these major institutions. But that's why I do what I do now, which is only helping people preserve the wealth and protecting all of it and building a future for themselves with it.
Well, and being on the other side of the table gives you a perspective you just can't gain from studying, if you will. So you did kind of lead me into two things. One is a give me. I don't think you meant to do it, but I'll take it anytime I can get it. So first one, let's talk about land trust, and then let's talk about, you said you're going to be sued. So I want to talk about management as well. We're on the topic. You said everybody's going to get sued. So let's start on the land trust. What does it do? Who's it helpful for? Does it help everybody? Is it only a select group of the population? Talk to me about it.
Yeah. So land trusts are used to create anonymity, right? So you can use land trusts to hide the anonymity of your actual ownership of a piece of property, as well as your ownership of any companies that you own, right? Land trusts don't offer any actual protection. You actually need to combine a land trust with a series LLC to have the protection and the anonymity together, right? We combine that in addition with having all of the corporate filing documents that go into creating these structures all point back to my law firm. So then those are all protected by the attorney-client privilege. So it's really a closed loop of information. So that, because if anybody said, hey, I think I want to go sue Matt because we got into a bad car accident, I think he's at fault, or, I think he committed fraud to me because he sent me an email and we have a misunderstanding about that. When they go to look into like, what does Matt own? It looks like Matt doesn't own anything. He qualifies for food stamps, right? So that doesn't look like somebody I really want to go after. If they make the mistake of trying to go after you, then what they find out is everything is actually protected in this castle of protection, which limits down what they can recover to almost nothing. So then even at that point, there's no incentive for them to pursue you. So not only are you hidden, you're actually very unattractive. Even if they try to go through the measures and spend a bunch of money, they just always are getting bad and bad incentives and bad feelings along the way about ever wanting to see if they want to go after you.
Well, and I know it's not a universal rule or anything, because sometimes people do get emotionally engaged, but I have not found that people that live in abundance or that have a reasonable amount of income really go to attorneys and pursue people to roll the dice and put their own money on the table to see if they can get someone else's money. They just don't live that way. So I see a lot of people that are kind of sharks, if you will, that really don't seem to have as much and don't have as much to lose that go after you. And so, boy, having to put 25 grand up with a law firm to attempt to sue you when you look difficult to sue, they're not going to do it. They're just not going to.
They don't do it. And then the attorneys that are paid on commission, which in the attorney field they call contingency, don't want to do it either, because now you've threatened their ability to get paid. They only get paid at the very, very end, right? So if you make it look like, oh, well, we might not get paid on this one. Well, guess what? That's not the case they're taking, right? And so
they're not going to the equivalent of $10,000 of their own time to roll the dice when they can pick a lower hanging fruit.
Yeah, because remember, they got hundreds of cases, right? And they're only picking the ones that they want and the ones that they're sure they'll get paid on. And they got staff and they got other people. So they got to make sure they're getting paid, time and time again into it. And I forget what your second question was. I know we were talking about land trust. Oh, it was about
management. Yeah, but I kind of want to get into the properties themselves just a little bit, because we've talked about the bigger picture here. And we've got, let's just say 12 minutes. So we won't bore everybody with some of the less attractive qualities here of managing properties, but they've got your contact information. They need to get consulted. They need to consult with you. They need to get with you, whether it's on a phone, whatever it may be. Just have a conversation. Scott's a nice guy. I've spent time with him, so don't be scared of him. Even though he's an attorney, he's okay. And just talk to him. Get a counselor. That's what you really need, is somebody that'll tell you, hey, this works, this doesn't work, and don't spend your money here. Not pay me and let's talk about it. So that's on the books. We've got that on the sideboard. They should follow you on iTunes. They should get a hold of you, set up a consultation. Let's talk about some of the direct fears people have when it comes to investment properties, because we do property management. These people are investors. We're talking real estate investments today. What have you seen come up that should have been avoided, could have been avoided? Give me just some fun stories of things that people have gotten themselves into. Hey, let's even say with a property manager, or maybe self-managing. What have you seen? Horror stories.
Yeah. So in terms of property management, I just had one with a client. I just shot a podcast with her just the other day while I was at FinCon, doing some speaking over there. It was in Orlando, huge event, thousands of people at it. It's phenomenal. But I shot a podcast with a real estate investor out there, and what she did is she had bought a property, an apartment complex in another state. They didn't check the numbers and do the due diligence as well as they should, even though they had a mentor that was helping them with the investment and they were using other people's money to be able to get into the investment. And then they had a very well seasoned property manager. It was the largest property manager there in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Right. So the issue that they ran into, though, is the property manager was very large. They're the ones that were producing all of the numbers, but they didn't actually have a personal relationship with anybody in the property management company, right? They didn't. And so what happened is that the numbers that they had got from the property manager were technically true, right? But also weren't very helpful. And really it led them down the wrong path of decision making. And then it turns out that, oh yeah, it had high occupancy, but all the people that came in on to fill that were in the apartment complex had just moved in a month ago and all hadn't paid rent, and paid nothing to get in, and so none of those numbers had come in when they were doing the due diligence. And then they didn't know that this was a super high crime area where it had the highest amount of carjackings in all of Albuquerque. And so they were like, oh, okay, well, maybe we should put in a security gate. So then they had the property manager put in the security gate for them, but it took them 9 months to be able to put up just a simple gate. And then the battery pack that they used on it was actually too small. So it would work for a day and then needed 3 days to solar charge to be able to go in and out, right? And at the end of the day, this is one of the things that we talk about on Real Estate Nerds, is trying to learn from these lessons about like, what would you do differently in that type of situation? And what actually ended up coming at the end of this is that they didn't find, they just didn't even do the due diligence really on the property manager to really find out whether, like, did they actually have a personal touch with these people? Was they, what were they really getting into? They just said, oh, big is good. I'll go with big. Right. And I think that's really a big mistake, right? Is that a lot of times you really need to look closely at, what's the character of the people that's really behind the company that are the real decision makers and pioneer with it. And I bet, Matt, that's probably why you do so well, is because you're so public with people getting to know you and having confidence in what you do. And you stand behind, the company that you do so strongly, which has led to the tremendous growth that you've had. But I just bring that up as a counterpoint, as an example for where I've worked with investors that have really gone wrong because they just kind of made big assumptions about what people would be like as being responsible and who actually was at the helm, making sure things were going to be quality.
You touched on two things. One of those being apartment complexes. So let's talk about I know fourplexes is considered smaller. It's not an apartment complex or not multi, but let's say for the sake of the argument, let's talk about fourplexes on up to about 50 units. There are so many investors that go to these, let's just say, investing groups, and they have sandwiches and a glass of iced tea, and everybody celebrates their success, and they just use our people and go out. These are great deals. And on paper, some of those small apartment complexes look impressive. And then you drive up to it and you're like, you don't want to get out of the car. They're either D or F grade, or the neighborhoods are in disarray. They're selling drugs out of some of them. And it doesn't matter the city. Every city's got its issues, and every city's got A to F properties and so on and so forth. But I can't even tell you how many investors come to us over the years. Some already bought the complexes and they go, we want you to manage it. Welcome. And then some of them call us and go, hey, will you evaluate this for us, because we're looking at it. And I got to be real honest, I haven't seen one complex under 50 units. Well, I take that back. I've seen one. I've got one that has looked attractive. And the reason that one looked attractive had nothing to do with the actual day-to-day numbers. It had to do with the geographic location and the future potential of the land. Because all around it, new condos are going up that are really nice. And this place is the opposite. And so it's not going to take long before that thing goes vertical. The tenants are going to be out, and the owner will turn it and make some money. The rents hadn't been raised. It was a mess 25 ways to Sunday. And if you think you're going to get an older complex and just turn it, call me sometime and ask me about my experience with the EPA dealing with older properties. It's not been fun, and I don't even touch the renovations. We're the management company, so stick to something after 1978. The other is that when you're talking about property managers, so I'm a big proponent of management, not just because we do it, but because I've got friends around the nation that do this, and I always joke that among one trade group that we're a member of, NARPM, NARPM, you could go to the national convention, drop $100 bill on the floor, and people would walk around trying to figure out who dropped it. That group of people who are actively engaged in their industry, that pay to go to convention, they're not extroverts. They're not always the most fun people at the party by any means. Any means. Those are some dry conventions. But they are such honest, good people, and they try so hard. Now you've got a whole nother 70% of the property management communities out there across the nation that are really under the radar. I've had 3 managers in Austin this year write us hot checks.
Wow.
Those bank accounts are supposed to be separated, not commingled. So if there's no money in there from one check, how many other properties are they managing and there's no money in that trust account? Texas doesn't have oversight onto those like some other states do. There's only a couple that honestly do. Most states don't. California has obviously got oversight on everything. But it's just scary to me. You're talking about reputation and doing the right thing by people. Yeah, big is not always better, but I don't know how you find somebody other than maybe watch them, look at their media like this, get to know them as a human. Maybe actually have a conversation with them, ask them where they grew up. I mean, to vet them, to feel them out if they're real, because some of these people are just they're interesting individuals. But those, I will say, it's not a surefire thing. But if they're a member of trade groups and they're actively engaged in their community and their industry, it's really hard to be kind of a bad person and take that role. It seems like you go one way or the other. You're either off the reservation under the radar, or you're truly trying to better yourselves and your colleagues. So I don't know, maybe that's at least a place to start. So we've got about 18 minutes today. If you guys have any questions, please put those on the right side. Let us know what questions you have. We're happy to help you with anything we can. Last thing, let's talk about one of the biggest fears that owners have. So all owners get into investing, and their number one fear is the tenants. The tenants are going to destroy my property. The tenants are going to kick in the doors and the walls. The tenants are going to sue me. The tenants are going to not pay their rent. The tenants are the worst people, and it doesn't matter what property it is, what neighborhood you're in. That is like this innate internal fear of real estate investors. Oh my God, tenants, what am I supposed to? So obviously there's horror stories. Before I jade your answer, what has been your experience collectively, not just with one or two individuals? Have tenants been the worst thing in the world, the best thing in the world? What's your outlook on it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have some experience from myself as an investor. I probably have a lot more experience from all the clients that we work with, since I interface with about 2,000 clients right now pretty actively, and getting their experience from it. That helps me, advise the legal strategies I use, as well as my own investing. What's really fun about doing what I do is actually being able to connect all of the different people together, deal makers and money people, and getting all that to work. And also learning about exactly what you're talking about now, which is what happens on the tenant side of things. I think going back even to your question about how do you actually find out who are good people and who are good tenants, there's best practices that are used in every industry, right? And if you're getting into a business, and real estate investing is very much so a business, if you know the best practices that people are using and you execute them, you're going to be as okay as you ever are going to be, right?
You're already delivering a B, A or B, A minus, and you hadn't even started yet.
Right. You're already going to do pretty okay. Why? Because you're already doing the best ideas everybody else has already thought of, right? And already tested. And so if you just start there, then you're probably going to be okay, right? The problem that a lot of people are running into is that they think that they're going to try to figure stuff out when really what they need to be doing is just saying, like, what are all the good people doing? Why don't I just copy that? And that's really like what I've done with Royal Legal Solutions is taken all of what the best people knew, combine it together, create synergies with it, and to be able to make this really explosive legal product that comes into and is like taking the real estate investing community by storm here in the last year, right? But you don't have to do that to be a good investor, right? What I did is really super difficult to do, and it comes from first starting what's the best practices and then innovating off of that to be able to say what's going to be better. But if you're just looking, just start looking at like, hey, am I doing background checks, into who these people are, right? Did I verify the income,
What level are those background checks? Because a lot of owners will go on and get a free credit report that shows little to nothing, not know how to run criminal, especially nationwide criminal, and then they want to meet their dog. Well, that's just not cutting it. I mean, you got to have a credit score from one of the top three, a full credit report, a full history, and you've got to know what your standards are. I see so many people that self-manage and they go, yeah, I want someone to apply. Okay, what's the bar? What do I have to hit to know that you're going to approve me? Well, I don't know, good credit. What does that know? Like, you've got to have some ideology of a number and a standard and a baseline to know how to run the business. And if you don't, including property management companies, if they're flexible, that is right for a federal fair housing lawsuit. There's no flexible. You're at the bar or you're not. And I don't even want to look at your name because that can be misconstrued as, we don't like you for some reason. If you've got a 720 credit score, you've been at a job for 5 years, you make great income, you're already looking like you're 98% the way there.
Yeah. And maybe your experience might be different than mine. This would be interesting for us to talk about. Really, it would be what I find more so than anything else of what gets people in trouble is that they'll take information like we said today, which is like, make sure you're doing background checks, right? But they don't have a clear definition of what that is or what the actual standards are. So what industry standards actually mean for me and the investors that I work with are very specific on what exactly it is that you want, right? You want this type of credit score, or if it's a blended approach between a number of different factors, what those ranges are before you actually even start running the test. Now, I can guarantee you that this becomes more money than you want to pay and much more of a pain in the ass in the very beginning of it, right? It's going to be. But you have to start thinking of yourself as saying that I'm building a business. Building a business should be too expensive and be difficult at the beginning while I'm learning. And then what happens is that if you push through that and go to the second deal or the third deal that's going on, everything becomes much more efficient. And that you learn ways to optimize what you're doing. So then it's much easier and then your costs come into play. The reason why that's important is because if you don't take your medicine on the front end, paying more than you think you should and having to learn things that are more difficult than you really want to learn, you risk losing money. And losing money in this real estate game is easy to do. And it happens. I have a whole show about how people lose millions of dollars and what happened to them when they did it. But if you just take the medicine on the front end, you have consistency with what you're building, and you're building this foundation for long-term growth that's going to give you the financial freedom that you're looking for. But what that comes in is inherently I think most people don't want to do the hard work, don't know exactly what hard work they really need to do. And then the other piece of it too is that they're really thinking that like, I have to make this cash flow from day one, when a much better approach, if you're getting into the game, is saying like, how can I actually institute what are all the best practices and not actually target a dollar figure from the beginning, but just saying, I'm going to target the best type of real estate rental business for somebody that has 1 to 3 properties. And what does that need to look like? And then you start backwards from there. And then you'll find out the way to make it profitable if you start from saying, I'm going to demand quality and excellence first, and then work my way down.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we see consistently is people that they get a little concerned about the money and they start taking risks that cost them more. It could be that they overprice their properties and underdeliver on quality. It could be that they get one application and they get nervous that they're never going to get a second one, and so they just push it through if it doesn't meet the criteria. And I'm not talking about stuff for our company because we're just scripted. We rinse and repeat. We don't do anything different unless we change a policy, and that policy is in writing. there is nothing that varies from that policy because it's going to be the best practice. And if it's not the best practice, then we alter the policy. But we see a lot of owners that go out there, and I would say the first thing I see them really do before they even touch the tenant is overpriced properties. There's been studies, numerous, that show that if we have a cup of coffee, we believe it's worth $1.50. If someone else has it, it's only worth 10 cents. And so we always believe our products or services or whatever are more valuable than the marketplace. Marketplace doesn't care about us. Marketplace says, I'm going to take the best value and quality for the price, and tough. I don't care who you are. So we see people overprice a lot. We see people push through tenants or just get nervous and accept people that they should have never accepted. We see a lot of people that go out, and a lot of our clients that are not referred to us will try on Zillow to rent their house. Craigslist used to be years ago, but don't do that. It's ripe with fraud. But Zillow is the big thing now. And I tried Zillow for 3 months. Had one tenant, but they moved in and then they didn't pay rent the next day because I told them they could pay rent after they moved in. And then, so we're coming to you now. We have a second tenant who we have in place, and they're wonderful, but they're 2 weeks behind on rent. And we're like, we need to start from zero with this. Like, how did we get to this point? We're happy to help you. But that's generally when we refer them to somebody like you, Scott, and go, look, if they're beyond 15 days behind on rent, there's no way they're catching up because people get paid either twice a month or every 2 weeks. So if they're not on a payment plan less than 15 days back, they got to go. Even if they go voluntarily, however you arrange it, pull up the moving truck for them. You got to get them out of there, and you don't want to waste the next 30 to 45 days fighting in court. So anyway, kind of off on a side topic, but where I was starting with that is that a lot of people have this fear of tenants, and you're an attorney, so you've seen good and bad tenants and everything else. I got to tell you, we have a lot more problems getting owners to properly maintain and to set their properties up for success than we ever have with tenants, because the leases and the laws put some, teeth behind that when it comes to dealing with the tenants. You will pay this, you will do this. The property code is what it is. But when it comes to how we market the property, hey, those 3 shrubs in the front are dead? Yeah, but I don't want to pay for new shrubs. Okay, well, that's going to be a problem because the tenant that doesn't care about what their front yard looks like doesn't care about what your house looks like when they leave it either. So I would say, for any investors you've got out there, take care of business, consult with Scott, give him a call, set up your LLC, set up everything that you're supposed to do, and take care of that on the front side. But don't be scared of the tenants, because the tenants are your lifeblood for money. That's your customer. You need them to get to retirement, and we can deal with tenants, but you got to take care of business with yourself, whether it's getting the LLCs lined up, whether it's taking care of the income, whether it's getting proper insurance, whether it's replacing shrubs in the front yard. You got to take care of your business on the owner side, and that's much more difficult. So, Scott, we've gone through a lot of this today. We're kind of coming down to last 8 minutes. Again, if anybody's got any questions, feel free to let us know. What have we missed today that you'd like to share with people that you just think would be helpful to them? Any links, any friends, any advice? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so we actually have a special promo link for everybody here today. That's the royallegalsolutions.com/1836. I also dropped it in the comments here, the royallegalsolutions.com/1836. When you go to that page, what it's going to be is you're going to have the opportunity to get like a free report, which is all of our best practices that we use for real estate investors. And we'll also, as part of that, it'll be part of your phone number and email. We're just going to email that over to you. So that way you can have that if you want to reach out to us after that, to schedule a consultation. You're also able to do that. I also dropped that in the link too, that you can schedule a time to talk with us to see, are you following the best practices? Where are your risks at? Kind of get that information. Like, what kind of systems do we put in place to see if that makes sense for you? We're essentially a one-stop shop for everything real estate investor related when it comes into your acquiring the assets. How do we need to be moving them into the structures? How does your estate planning need to go, et cetera? One thing that we just got from Nick here that just dropped us a comment that says is, do you practice or do business in Northern California? And the answer to that is yes. So I help clients nationwide, no matter where they live or what assets they own. that I can help you, right? So for California in particular, today we were talking about series LLCs and LLCs. The coolest thing about Northern California is that people don't know is that they get hammered with $800 a year in franchise taxes every single year for every LLC they have, no matter whether it's in California, out of California, it doesn't matter. If you're a resident of California, you're getting hammered on franchise taxes. California investors can actually use Delaware statutory trust and completely avoid franchise taxes. But I digress into all of the information that you can learn on royallegalsolutions.com that has, we have tons of it out there. But the best way to be able to get what you exactly would need, we're going to have the most advanced solutions for you, is just to call us up at the 512-757-3994 or download your free report here and we can give you a call.
And guys, if a lot of you guys that are investors, honestly, a lot of you guys are coming from California. Whether you're investing in Austin, you're investing in Nashville or Atlanta, wherever. A lot of you guys are in California going to other states with your money. I've got to tell you, if you have properties in California, I do not work in California. I have friends that I really respect and actually like as humans that are out there. You got to have a property manager. I mean, y'all's litigation is so far beyond what the other states are, and it's accelerating. Same thing with Seattle area. If you're in the Seattle area, I've got friends that work up there. I do not work there, but I'm happy to refer you to those people. If you're trying to manage your own in those areas, don't. It's just flat out not worth your time, your headache, and you're missing something legally because it's accelerating so much with the tenant protections and state laws. So don't put yourself out there. I don't make a dollar from it. I just know the difficulties in those areas, and you just don't want to put yourself in a bind for $100 or $200 a month when you can be done and then go have fun with the kids at the beach instead of worrying about some lawsuit from a squatter that broke his fingernail on your front door and doesn't even pay rent. So anyway, that's my soapbox as well. Scott, I can't say enough. I appreciate you joining us today. It's just good to spend time with you. I'd like to see you more often. I need to get with you kind of on a side topic, but we'll do that when we're not burning everybody's time today. And looks like we've got all your links. Our next webinar is going to be, I think I've got it on the very top, but I'll put it down here on the bottom just in case. November 8th, 11:30. Now, where are the deals and setting yourself up for a change in the market? So what we're going to talk about is kind of where the deals are on our next webinar. And since, that's not going to go for a whole hour because, hey, if there was that many deals, then we'd all be rich. We're also going to talk about this market and how it's been going so long in a positive direction. And we all know it's kind of on borrowed time. Nobody knows how long. But what are we going to do to poise ourselves for success when it does change course? So you can follow us on Crowdcast. That'll be the best way to get notified of the next event when it comes up. Please reach out to Scott. Again, I vouch for him. He's a nice guy. He'll talk to you. Even if you're in California, he'll talk to you. He may come visit you if you're in the wine country, though. So I don't know that I'd give him your home address. You may have to get something to make sure he can come visit you next time he's out in Napa.
Yeah, for sure. We'll travel for wine. Absolutely.
I love Northern California. I got to tell you, between Tahoe and the wine country, it's just, there's nowhere like it. It's pretty wonderful up there. So thank you guys for joining us today. Scott, any closing words?
Yeah, guys, just great to be with you guys here today. I would check out the royallegalsolutions.com website. You can reach out to me at scott@royallegalsolutions.com. You can call us at 512-757-3994. If you want to see what the best real estate investors are doing in terms of making money and losing money and what they did or didn't do that led them to their best and worst deals, check out the Real Estate Nerds podcast on iTunes and Stitcher. It's going to have some really cool stories on there too. That's the Real Estate Nerds podcast.
Love it. I've got our website up there. We'll see you guys. Looks like, what did I have on there? November 8th, 11:30 a.m. And until then, be safe. Let us know if we can do anything for you. Feel free to reach out. Even if you're not in our neck of the woods, we'll be glad to give you references to people that are maybe closer to you, help you any way we can. That's what we do. So have a great rest of the week. Thank you guys for your time. We'll see you next month.
Thanks, Matt. Take care, Bryce. Bye-bye.